All right, good afternoon all, and welcome to another class session. Today we're going to be talking about salary negotiation. This is a topic that has come about in recent years. At the same time, also, this is a topic that folks have been wanting to know more about. How do I actually ask for more money, right? Or how do I negotiate a salary that's commensurate to my skills and abilities? At the end of the day, I think some things to keep in mind is that salary negotiation is practiced. Salary negotiation is something that is data driven and has a real methodology when it comes to discussing your compensation package, for your next job. Okay, but to start out with, I'll be really frank with you. It's not all about the money. When we think about a salary negotiation package or salary compensation package, there's a lot of things that come into mind. And so the information I'm going to provide to you is information that I also post in Canvas after class. But big picture, I think this is something that you're going to need to know more about as we move forward. And I would recommend that you actually hang on to the URL for the video. That way you can hang on to it after this class is over and as you go into your graduation year or the future. Okay, so there are some things to keep in mind when we think about a compensation package. And mind you, this is also based on conversations I've had with graduating seniors when they've received their compensation package for the job that they're going to get after graduation. And so these are some of the pointers that I go over with students. But more importantly, this information is also based on my conversations with those students over the last few years. So starting off, there are several things that you need to keep in mind that are not negotiable, right? The first is insurance. The main thing here is when we think about your insurance package is that you have it, right? And so sometimes you have a situation where you'll have medical, dental is added, or vision is added. Okay, and so keep in mind that when we think about insurance, that is predetermined by the company because of how much they've paid into a specific provider. Okay, so keep in mind that medical is first and foremost a requirement. Dental is another, and then vision is a third. The next non-negotiable is retirement or a 401k. I think when it comes to that, again, it is based on what they've agreed upon or what they've purchased through a provider like Fidelity or Mutual of Omaha and things of that nature. Okay, so the thing to think about when it comes to retirement is how much are you contributing. And these are questions to ask yourself or ask in the process. How much are you going to contribute to your retirement? How much is the company going to contribute? Is it anywhere between 3 to 5%? Is it matching? These are questions to sort of sift through when you receive the information when it comes to retirement. The other part is, at what point are you vested? Okay, and so some companies, groups will say that you have to be working at the company for X number of years before you can have access to the money or to the funds or transfer, right? The next part is vacation. Again, that vacation is set by the company. It's something that's non-negotiable. The standard is 2 weeks outside of holidays, and you have paid holidays. Some companies actually provide a vacation day for election day every year, whether it be the primary or the federal elections. Some companies actually observe specific bank holidays. Okay, so that's one thing to sort of delve into or learn more about. The final piece that's non-negotiable is sick leave. how much time can be used, how much do you have to use it or lose it, if you will, and that goes along with vacation. Okay. When it comes to vacation and sick time, there are specific stipulations on when you could use that vacation or how often. Okay, so these right here are the non-negotiables when it comes to your compensation package. When we think about overall, when we think about how people negotiate their salary, there's several mistakes that come into mind, and I'm approaching it from the most common mistake versus what's the best thing, because I'll be honest, the most common mistakes are actually when you look at it the other way, are things you need to actually be knowledgeable of. So the first common mistake is actually lack of market knowledge. Okay, and specifically that of hiring trends and salary trends. Okay, so first the hiring trends, and so let me bring up again the occupational dictionary. And again, this information is maintained by the Department of Labor, right? I introduced this to you a few weeks back, right? When we think about a specific position or profession, one thing to keep in mind is the amount of information that's available to you as it relates to that specific occupation. And it's important to really realize not only the information of the skills that are required, but the potential for hiring, but the potential for success, right? And so when we scroll down, the thing I want to point out is, one, the level of education. I pointed that out last time. But the other piece I want to point out to you is this section right here of the web page, okay? And that is salary and hiring trends. Okay, when we think about those hiring trends, let me go directly to that tab. These are the trends for mechanical engineers, not only in Ohio but nationally. And as you can see, there's a average or moderate growth trend, right? Between 2018 and 2028, there's a 5% growth in the state of Ohio, about 4% growth in the United States. Yes, I think earlier this week, I think yesterday, the federal government released a job trends report, and there's over 900,000 jobs going into the economy, new jobs going into the economy. So we're seeing that growth already. How that translates to our younger generation and how it translates to recent graduates is a different question altogether. But this website provides you information on the hiring trends within the state and also nationally. When we think about the trend overall, one thing to keep in mind as it relates to engineers, you are at a point where our workforce is getting at an age where they're retiring at a large rate. COVID did impact those numbers significantly, and so a lot of folks are on their way to retirement. Okay, and so what happens is in that instance, companies are either replacing them or reimagining the positions that those workers were once in. And so what we see here is, one thing to keep in mind is when we think about those hiring trends, what the positions that you see now may not be around by the time you graduate or even within the next 5 years. These positions that you see may, or the positions that you may be vying for, may be somewhat in a managerial role or a project management role or at a higher level in the manufacturing food chain. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing is the salaries. Okay, and again, if you go back to that website, going back to this web page, and you click the salary trends, here you go. Now, mind you, when it comes to these salary trends, this is the whole entire workforce. Okay, anecdotally, for students in the mechanical engineering program at the University of Cincinnati going into the Midwest in manufacturing, average salary is about $68,000. Okay, the 25th percentile, if you will, is about 57. The high end, the 75th percentile, is about 73 to 82. The high end is actually 95. Okay, 95,000 is actually working for Marathon in either Findlay, Ohio, Robinson, Illinois, or North Carolina. Okay, so when it comes to salary trends, this is the information that you have in front of you. So average salary for mechanical engineer in Ohio is about 79,500, nationally 88,430. Okay, that is for any engineering position available in any open position, and regardless of years of experience. Okay, so you know what the range is. If you think about it in another sense, if you're looking at a specific, if you're considering a salary in mechanical engineering in the Midwest, you're probably going to be in this below the average. Okay, and again, I temper that with years of experience, advanced degrees or credentials, and also industry. Okay, so these are things to keep in mind. There's also a tab for the hourly rate. Okay, hourly rate. These are the averages. Okay, also keep in mind co-op salaries on average are somewhere around $17, $18 an hour. Okay, so we're not far off from the state range, if you will. Okay, questions on the salary? And again, let me what I will do is actually copy and paste this in the chat so you have direct access to it. And so that is in the chat for you to review at your convenience. Okay. So, you know, this website, you know, ONET Online is a very important resource for you. And, you know, you could type in any other occupation. If not mechanical engineer, nautical engineer, aeronautics engineer, automotive engineer, it'll give you this information. Okay. So we talked about hiring trends. We also talked about salary trends. When we think about, you know, those long-term trends, right? Here's some projected salaries from, you know, for specific fields, if you will. I mentioned mechanical engineers, and this is a different set of data from the Department of Labor. Note, materials engineers are at a different projected salary. Okay. And so these are things to keep in mind. When we think about hiring trends, it is important to know who's going to be recruiting at the career fair. If you keep track of the information from last year, we're hoping to see the same companies return this year. And so, you know, keep in mind who's going to be coming back, right? When we think about your co-op employer and going, you know, as we go into your final term of co-op and approaching your HR person at your co-op employer, ask what the forecast is for the next fiscal year. Okay. You know, some trends to keep in mind is paying attention to the sales engineers and finding out, are they anticipating large customer contracts? Are there expansions and acquisitions? What we note sometimes whenever there's a large contract brewing, as we go into Q4, if you will, companies are starting to ramp up so that by Q1 of the following fiscal year, they're going into full steam, right? Or they're anticipating that huge contract to be executed sooner than later, okay? And it may happen by the time you start your new job, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing are those acquisitions, and I'll say this from experience from our students, where a company was acquired by a larger company, and you know, really what happens is in those at those times, either the senior engineers move on, or and take the institutional knowledge with them, or they retire, or they are absorbed in the company. Okay. Does that present opportunity for you? And the one example that I'm thinking of, the company was based out of Milford. They were acquired by a larger firm, more national company. It was a computing software firm, and they kept the mechanical engineers, the co-ops, not only for the co-op semesters, but they recognize that if they trained them based on the company philosophy, they will fall in line with their hiring trend in the future. So, the question to ask is, if your company is acquired, what is the forecast for hiring new folks in the next fiscal year? Okay. To dive in a little bit more about those salary trends, here you go. When we think about the different majors, right? I mentioned earlier that the average for graduates out of our program is about 68,000. This is based off of the National Association of Colleges and Employers salary survey. So this is based on data from recent graduates. Okay, and so as you know here, the higher paying jobs is in the tech fields with computer engineering and software engineering. Okay, we're around here, right? I think again, we temper this data with not only co-op experience, but also industry and location. Okay, so now having a clear sense of what your salary expectations are is really important. Okay. The other common mistake when it comes to salary negotiation is the timing of it all. When we think about the timing, your salary negotiation should take place after you've interviewed and you've received the job offer, not once you've received the job offer. There's a time where you've interviewed, and then they'll ask you what your salary is, right? And then you get the job offer, and then you accept it, and then you're asking them to renegotiate. You've missed the mark. Okay, so again, the timing of this should be from the time you interview to the time you receive the job offer, but not before, or you shouldn't be negotiating salary after you've accepted the job. Okay, that's happened before, and I've personally experienced that as a hiring manager. And honestly, the individual signed off, and there was not a whole lot of negotiating power on that person's side. While I was able to provide something to the person I hired, it wasn't enough based on what she was asking for, right? But again, she was negotiating after she's accepted the position. Okay, if possible, avoid the conversation about salary until you've seen the offer. Okay, in some states, it is legal for an employer to ask about your salary. But does not mean you have to provide it. And at the same time, also, if you're working if you're working for one employer and you're moving to another, you don't necessarily, or you're not obligated to provide your exact salary, at that point in time, right? Be prepared with an answer, but don't give the direct answer, right? And again, knowing the salary trends is really important. Okay, again, factor that with your years of experience. By the time you've graduated, you'll have at least 2 years of experience in general when it comes to co-op experience. So, generally co-op adds another $3,000 to $5,000 more on top of a salary offer. Okay, you should be paid what you're worth, but not based on approximations, right? The final part when it comes to salary negotiation, and this is the common mistake, is the lack of research. Okay, and lack of research not only means lack of understanding of the job market, but also and the salary trends. But the big factor is location, right? And so when we think about those salaries, do your research. Okay, your salary negotiations should be data driven, not based on your emotion. Okay, the thing I always tell students and suggest is take a look at the Starbucks factor. Okay. What I mean by that is, think about if you go to Starbucks on a regular basis, right? Think about the common drink or the drink that you order most often. Okay. For me, it's a venti latte, right? And then a venti latte costs X number here in Cincinnati. But how much does it cost in Chicago? How much would a venti latte cost in in San Francisco, right? Or if not a Starbucks drink, how about a gallon of milk, right? If you regularly buy a gallon of milk, it's about $2.58 at Kroger here. How much is it in Hawaii? In Honolulu, I think at one point it was $4 a gallon, right? So when we think about the cost of living or COLA, right? We do have some ways to figure that out. And so this is from NerdWallet. Okay, and I'll put this in the chat. When we think about the cost of living, it is important to know how much you're going to be spending, not only in terms of your housing, but also everyday expenses. So let's say you currently live in, oh, I don't know. Let me find Cincinnati here. Oops. And you want to live in San Francisco. And then pre-tax, let's say 68,500. So with that, and 68,500 is is close to the average I mentioned for a mechanical engineering salary. You would have to earn 145,973 in San Francisco. It is a 113% difference when it comes to the cost of living, right? When we think about housing costs, significantly higher. Transportation costs, right? Gas, the amount of gas per gallon, $2.93 in Ohio, $3.82 in San Francisco. At the same time, also, if you're living in the city in San Francisco, would you be driving around a lot, right? Food costs. When we think about gallon of milk, it says here 109, but it's $2.34 in San Francisco. And these are common products that are purchased between both locations, right? A dozen eggs, $1 for in Cincinnati, $3.49 in San Francisco. When we think about entertainment costs, right? Movie ticket, about $13 in San Francisco, about 15. A 6-pack of beer, Heineken, $8.31, $10.39 in San Francisco. We also want to consider healthcare costs, okay? And again, when we think about your insurance, your insurance is set by a specific level and specific rate. And so when we think about your out-of-pocket expenses for medical, whether it be a doctor's visit, a dental visit, an eye doctor, these are considerations to keep in mind, right? So, you could play with this, and you could explore not only San Francisco. Let's see, I think Nashville is a place that is closely aligned with how much things are in Cincinnati. Yeah, close to 69,000 in Nashville. Okay, housing is a little expensive, but transportation costs are down. Entertainment, food, healthcare costs are down. Food costs are are relatively higher, but it's okay, right? And so, another one would be, say, Honolulu, right? Similar to living in San Francisco, right? Everything is higher. But let's say you go to Fargo, not even listed. Seattle, it's still a little higher. but relatively cheaper than San Francisco. Okay, so take a look at NerdWallet, take a look at the cost, and take a look at a cost of living calculator, so that way you understand how much it costs, where you're going to be moving to. Okay, if you're staying in Cincinnati, geographical factors are not even a consideration, right? But the big thing here is to understand what data you have in front of you to accurately portray your salary and communicate your salary. Okay, so the other part to ask is also this, and then fill in the blanks here. And when we think about articulating your value, right, you could say, during my X number of months of full-time work through co-op, I accomplished blank using my blank skills. This benefited the company by what? So as an example, during my 4 months of full-time work at Ethicon, I accomplished project management work, or projects that cut a lot of costs using my critical thinking skills. This benefited the company by saving $400,000. Yeah, something to think about. When you articulate your value, you also have to provide that sense of logic, right? More so in the data and also the results, right? Think about it from a instance of interviewing, right? When you're interviewing for a job, you're asked to answer based on situations. But if you recall, during an interview process, you're providing the context and the content to answer their question, the attributes that you've gained, and the results that you're articulating, right? And so the same goes along with salary negotiation. When we think about your skills, when we think about your experiences, you've accomplished a lot, whether it be managing multiple projects, or identifying cost reductions and waste within a company. Your work has benefited the company in a number of ways. So think about what you've done, right? All that aside, when we think about when we think about all of the elements of your compensation package, the final part to consider is, what do you need to know to make a solid decision to make judgment on the overall compensation package? Okay, so here are things to ask about. Okay, it may not be explicitly, it may not be in writing for you, but these are things to ask, right? So for example, going back to this, the certification and licensure conversation a few weeks ago, ask what professional development is available. Are they going to reimburse for certifications or training? Are they going to provide tuition reimbursement if you decide to go get a master's degree or you further your degree? Okay. Does a company offer flex time? I think when we think about flex time, people want the overload, right? Or the overtime pay. But sometimes flex time may be more valuable, right? Do you have that opportunity? When it comes to COVID, you probably noticed when the shelter-in-place rules went into effect, a lot of the professional engineers may have been displaced from the workplace and are working from home. They still may be working from home, but are there opportunities to work at home as opposed to work from home? What does that mean? What does that look like? In manufacturing, I get it. Working at home is not an option, right? But in some fields and in some industries, it's a viable opportunity. So what would it take to work from home? when we think about the equipment that you need to become successful. To be in my job, I need a computer and a working phone and good internet, right? But as an engineer, what other technology is needed for you to make your job successful? And so, that's a question to ask. Sometimes companies are issuing out company cell phones, or they're providing you your PPE, right? Um, is that still the case? Or if you're working in an environment like Honda, they may be providing you your uniform. So, how much are they providing in uniforms, and how much do you have to kick in for additional uniforms, right? The final thing to ask when we think about your compensation package is that your compensation package is when you first start out in the job, within the first 6 to 12 months. Okay. But the thing to ask is, what's the schedule for pay raises? What's the schedule for promotion? What do I need to show, that I can be promoted, right? And so, when we think about, your compensation package, these are the things that ask about if it's not already included in writing for you. Okay, this gives you a better understanding of not only how the company values your contribution, not only financially, but also in time, but also what they are willing to do to invest in your success. Okay. So these are questions to ask as you, I mean, even when, if you are satisfied with the salary level, these are things to ask, to sort of get a full understanding of your compensation package. The other piece to that too is, if your compensation level is not where you want it to be, these are questions to ask to help you understand why the compensation level is there, or if the compensation level is at a specific, as again, not to your satisfaction, could this be used to leverage alternatives for that increased compensation, right? So, like, for example, if you were hoping for a $75,000 salary, you got 70. Would this help if you ask these things, and if your company provided this to you, would that allow you to say, yes, I'll take the job? Okay. At the end of the day, when we think about that amount of money, right? How much is it to you at the end? The other part is, how much are you valued for your degree, and how much are you valued for the amount of work you've put in at this point? Okay. So that's something, those are some things to keep in mind. Ask yourself when you get to that point, when you've gotten the compensation package, you've understood everything that's been presented to you, you've asked all the questions, ask yourself these questions. Is the company a right fit? Oftentimes, a lot of people will take the lesser salary because it was the right fit for them. They felt at home. So anecdotally, one of our students years ago took a job in Fairfield, family company. The salary was insignificant to him, because in the end, he said the company was a right fit. The company valued him as an engineer and valued his contribution. At that point in time, that was all he needed. Okay. Another student did the same thing, because his wife was going through school, and she was when he graduated, she was about to enter her final year of nursing school. And so he needed to stick around for her, right? So, again, ask yourself, is the company a right fit? Next one is this company a place where I can grow and learn, right? Oftentimes that could be in the form of going through a training program, or going to graduate school, or getting your MBA. Again, ask yourself, can you learn and grow? The third question is, can I make a difference? I put out the example earlier of a company getting taken over, right? Is there an opportunity for you to make a difference in that transition? Or when you look at a company and there's a small number of engineers, and the senior engineer is retiring, can you make a difference in the time that you're there? Again, you know, understand, if you understand your skills and abilities and whatnot, you could then understand how much you can contribute to not only the profit margin, but also the culture and purpose of the organization. The fourth one is the culture a right fit for me? This is a conversation that goes back weeks ago. You know, it goes back to this idea of, do your values align with the values of the work group or the team or the company as a whole, as in a larger scale? Okay. And so when we think about that fit, that cultural fit, that plays a huge role in not only you know, your decision, but also the other questions asked before you, right? And then the final question is, do you see a career path? Okay, so one of my former students actually works out in Denver, and he's still there after 8, 9 years now. He started out as a junior engineer, worked his way up the ladder to a senior level engineer, namely because of his certifications. He actually was placed in a training program that was in a specialized geoplating certification for civil engineers, and that was his career path. That led him to a senior level role. And so when you consider a company, you could even ask, what is a potential career path for me in this role, or what's a potential career path for me working in this group, right? So these are questions to ask yourself as you ponder a decision or a package. Okay. In the end, as you enter salary negotiations, it's a conversation, right? It's not a battle. Oftentimes, the people say the objective is to get the most amount of money. Really, it's not. It's really having a conversation of understanding how the company is valuing you as the engineer. Okay, because in the end, second bullet, they picked you, right? You beat out other people for this job. Okay. When we think about the negotiation process, don't take it personal. Okay, that's why I said make it data driven, because when you don't make it data driven, you do make it personal, and when you make it personal, then there may be hurt feelings. Okay. Remain positive and flexible, and then make notes. Okay. Oftentimes when we think about what people say or what people promise, we often forget those things, right? So it's good to make notes for yourself, not only in terms of what HR said, but more importantly, what was promised to you or what you promised to them. Okay. The other piece I want to mention to you, and I think I brought this up, at the very beginning, is my Pinterest board. And here I do have some pins on salary negotiation and some graphics on that. In particular, let me find it. I had it earlier. Back up, actually. Oops. I should have put it out there, or kept the link. I do have. Oh, here it is. Here's a graphic on a formulaic way of getting to what I've been presenting to you. Okay, and it's kind of a flow chart of how to sort of maneuver your way through a salary negotiation. I'm going to put this in the chat as well. I presented a lot of information. What questions do you have? You could sort of unmute or put in the chat. Okay. Well, again, I've given you the links to occupational dictionary, so that way you could gain an understanding of the salary and hiring trends within any given major or field. You have the cost of living calculator link. There's a formulaic way of conducting a salary negotiation. Again, at the end of the day, it's all about understanding not only your value, but also what you offer to a company. Christian says, are there cases where an employer will withdraw an offer because of salary negotiations? Yes, I've seen that happen before because the individual was asking way too much and they couldn't meet it. And so rather than going back and forth, the company actually said, you know what? Thanks, but no thanks, right? And so, you know, it's a gamble, right? When we think about salary negotiation, it is a gamble. You know, will a company say yes? Will a company say no? Will a company say, are you kidding me? It happens, right? There are also instances where a company will withdraw an offer because something has come up. That actually occurred actually last summer during COVID, where companies actually made hires back in January, February, then COVID hit, and they withdrew a lot of the offers. It was really an unfortunate thing, but you know, the thing that that was kind of disappointing and somewhat upsetting is that a lot of our students were banking on the jobs that they received, and next thing you know, the company had to withdraw the offer because of financial reasons. So the one thing I did not put in here, the one I forgot to mention, is signing bonuses. Okay, don't expect it, especially in their current economy. Some companies will provide a signing bonus that is added to your overall compensation that first year. Okay, so keep that in mind. Some companies, when they do offer a signing bonus, it is within a specific period of time. So they may say, well, if you agree to this within the next 2 weeks, you'll have a $2,500 signing bonus. Okay. Not all companies use it. Not all companies actually provide it. Some of the larger companies that can afford it are the ones that provide signing bonuses because they want to sign people on sooner than later. Other questions? Okay, so some reminders. Final projects are due. I want to say relatively soon. Let's see here. Final projects are due next week. Okay, and again, I haven't heard from anyone if they're teaming up with another student, but if you are teaming up with someone, please let me know. And then when you submit, you copy your team members on the submission. I want to remind everyone about the ePortfolio page. I know that was due last week. I did mention in a Canvas message that I am not counting the embedding of a video as a requirement. And so that, you know, that's fine because of the fact that a lot of folks, I would say about 2/3 of our folks are using Weebly, and the HTML embed or the video upload actually was free up until about last year, and I didn't know that until now. So embedding a video is not a requirement for the final page for the ePortfolio. So, but next week is our last course, our course session, and so you know, I want to sort of bring everyone together one final time. So whoever's not on the call, there's usually about 40 people. Whoever's not on the call, please remind them that this next week is our last class. And then the final course session for you all is actually on the 20th, and that is a recorded lecture, and that recorded lecture is posted already. So on April 20 it's supposed to be our final session because of the reading days switch. And so just know that the final section of this course is the senior design lecture, and that's been posted already for you for your viewing at your leisure. It is information from Dr. Tom Houston, who actually oversees the senior design capstone year-long capstone process. And so if there are questions from that you may have, send them my way, and I could forward that on to Dr. Houston or answer that for you based on some of the questions that have been asked of him in the past. And so, but most definitely, if you forward any questions to me, I'll make sure it gets to I'll make sure it gets to Dr. Houston. Okay. Other questions? All right. Thank you all, and we'll see you next week.